Gilding the Voice with Hollywood glitter is one of the most champagne socialist things imaginable. Is this proof, or at the very least evidence, to suggest that The Voice is a project of the elite for the elite?
I think so, and I think it's extraordinarily clear example of a massive lack of self-awareness among those elite, that they just don't get it, that people are not sitting there in awe of them saying, "Oh, Kate, tell me how to vote in The Voice," but instead are just laughing at them and mocking them for their absolute lack of sense of perspective and their ridiculous kind of worldview, a detachment from real life and everyday life, that they think that firstly that we really care what they think about us and are interested in hearing their opinion. But secondly, that we think that they hold some value in analysing the very complex issues related to The Voice. I mean, a lot of the problems related to The Voice are quite complicated legal issues, quite complicated questions about where this might go. And we saw the mental gymnastics and ridiculous circular nature of the lack of logic around this issue in the Prime Minister's recent absolute train wreck of an interview with Sydney Radio 2GB's Ben Fordham. I mean, that interview might go down as one of the worst prime ministerial interviews in Australian history. The man just could not piece together a logical argument and kept, the argument, when you look at it, just contradicts itself the whole way through. They keep saying it's not going to have this influence, it's not going to do that, it's not going to. Well, then why do we need it, right? Why do you need to change the Constitution for something that you could achieve outside of the Constitution? It doesn't add up, and Australians can tell. They have that fantastic BS detector, right? We know, we sense when things don't add up, and we don't like it. And when we don't like it, when we feel like the wool's being pulled over our eyes, you can wheel out all the Hollywood stars you like. You're not going to get us to change our minds. In fact, it's only going to make it worse.
Well, to be fair, Ben Fordham's had some pretty good political kills lately, although it is easy pickings at the moment, so we have to keep that in mind.
Sure is.
But look, as we finish up here, Damien, I wanted to make a point. And look, Kate Blanchett tried to compare The Voice to women's suffrage, as if demanding equal rights to the vote is somehow the same thing as giving a racial group an extra political voice in our democratic system. The two topics could not be further apart. And in making these comments, it's often forgotten that Aboriginal men and women had the vote, Aboriginal men had the vote in Australia before many women. And that is something that we should be proud of if we're talking about race relations in this country. Now, Damien, is our political system devolving into something we're more likely to see last century rather than progressing into something we can all be proud of?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it is devolving if we move in this direction. It's not healthy to start dividing your nation by identity politics, immutable factors, things about yourself that you can't change, your race, your gender, even your sexual identity. Many would argue you're born with it. It is just not an appropriate way to handle a democracy. I mean, you don't build those factors into a democratic system and give special privilege to people according to those immutable factors. And that's essentially what this identity politics does. It's just an extension of the neo-Marxist ideology we're always talking about on the show and your shows and on the network. I mean, this stuff is, people are starting to catch on to what's going on here. They're starting to see the big picture. They're realizing it's not something that's some, right-wing cooker conspiracy, that it's a real thing, this identity politics ideology. But what cracks me up all the time with this, Alexandra, is just the gaslighting that goes on. Gaslighting is when somebody raises a problem, creates a problem, is doing a behavior that's negative, and then turns around and accuses you of being the one with the issue or the problem. That's gaslighting. And the queen of gaslighting in Australia at the moment has to be Aboriginal Affairs Minister Linda Burney. I mean, she constantly says, and is, this is parroted by the rest of the Yes movement quite often, that we are the ones on the no side who are scaremongering. We are the ones who are, being horrible and creating all this fear and misinformation and disinformation out there. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nobody wanted this thing except them. And so, you can't turn around and blame the average Australian who's finally waking up and saying, look, we've had enough of this nonsense and this waste of resources and money and this ideological garbage being shoved down our throats. And we just want to get on with life and, have a colourblind country where we look after people who need a little bit of a hand up, but we don't elevate victimhood to some kind of status whereby you're going to get, extra benefits for your suffering, if you like.
Well, just quickly before you run off, Damien, who else can Albo find hidden under the wing of his Airbus? Maybe he can invite Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to lecture us into a coma.
Oh,
or I hear that Pedro Pascal hasn't seen a social issue he didn't like. Who would you bring over?
Who would I bring over? Well, I'd just bring Margot Robbie home just for the sake of it. I'd do that. And look, I don't know what Margot Robbie's politics are, but we could it'd certainly be interesting to have a conversation with her to discuss that. But there are lots of movie stars out there that want to express an opinion or 10. And I think the best thing we could do is perhaps leave them right where they are in Hollywood and not bring anyone anywhere near us, if possible.
Well, they might have to write their own scripts if the strikes continue. That'll be fun to watch. Now, look, both the Spectator Australia and ADH TV stand against any constitutional amendment that divides this nation along racial lines. And thank you, Damien, for joining us today to discuss that topic and the alarming rise of Hollywood actors trying to convince us otherwise.
Yeah, hopefully the trend doesn't continue.